Welcome back. This is still the Children's Day celebration. In the spirit of that, the 27th of May, we are just going to expand the discussions to involve some edupreneurs and social manager. We have two persons who are going to expand on the discussions regarding children and the development of our nation. Lady Jennifer Ekwueme. She's an edupreneur and a school manager. Good to have you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good to see you. And we have Ifeoma Nwatu. He's a teen handler and a public servant. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me here.
All right. So when we speak of, the growth and development of a nation as it regards kids, asking them directly, I mean, you can also almost say that these guys don't know what's going on in this country, but as people who are closer to them, who manages them, you tend to see their growth, especially when they mention this is what they want to become in life because of what they do. Even though sometimes it doesn't really tally with what they become eventually. Because, we always have that thought. At some point in my life, I said I wanted to become a pilot. I'm sure I'm piloting on TV today, But then, do you think our educational system is skewed around creating curriculums that critically make kids think to solve Nigeria's problems?
The curriculum. We all know that our curriculum is outdated. So for every education sector that focuses on just the curriculum, the problems won't be solved. So that's where I'm grateful for the private sector, because I know that a lot of people in the private sector are not just depending on the curriculum. Because if you follow the curriculum, there's a lot of things the children wouldn't be exposed to. There are a lot of things they wouldn't learn. So because the private sector is invested in this too, a lot of people are bringing in skills and helping children develop the skills that would need to effect that change. But the problem is that the private sector is still like a drop in the ocean. So you go to a public school and you have thousands of children. But you come to a private school and you have, the biggest private school could have 1,000 or not even 1,000 children. And then, so you now wonder with how much effort you put into the private sector, if nothing is done in the public sector, nothing much can happen in the long run. So beyond, I really think if we decide to make a change, beyond waiting for government to go into government schools and effect those changes in the curriculum, people could develop extracurricular things which people are doing. So you have children from private schools still able to have access to those things if we hope to see any change. But going with the regular curriculum, nothing much can happen.
So sometimes when we speak of this curriculum, let me speak to you now. We tend to say every time that this curriculum is outdated. Why are we not effecting this change? We know where the problem is, and yet we are refusing to change it.
Okay, I think once we know that something is already outdated, the next step is to update it. And I think this comes from the Ministry of Education, not even the private school owners, because the private school owners are trying to do some things on their own to bring in these skills, to bring in these extra curriculum activities based on the passion of the children under their care. So I think the Ministry of Education and the State Commissioner for Education should be the ones who will sit down, look at this old curriculum, compare it with what is actually going on now, because things are beginning to evolve, the tech, the digital skills and all of that. All these things should come in. Okay, let's just look at the just concluded JAMB examination. Most of these candidates that went for JAMB, one of the reasons why there was massive failure is that some of them didn't have access to a desktop until they got into the JAMB hall.
Wow.
Yes, but when you come to the school curriculum, they tell you they are doing computer sciences, they just do the theory and there's no practical
practical.
aspect of it. So I think they should bring in equipment, not just equipment. After updating the curriculum, they should also bring the necessary equipment and facilities that will help these children get to the current stage of education in other advanced countries. So I think it's actually the job of the Ministry of Education to look into that.
I think it's worthy to note that the current minister is actually working on that. So we're hoping that by September they're unveiling the program where they said they're including skills. So children from primary school are exposed to different skills. Even though some of the skills might sound quite basic, bead making, but you wonder, but it's a good development. So I think, slowly but surely, some changes are coming. So we hope that by September, when it's fully implemented, everybody comes on board.
And I think to the current state governor of Enugu State with the smart school, because the smart school is not just for the public sector. I think it's going to be more like a public school for where everyone can maybe easily come in. Trying to set up the smart school, I think that also is going to help our children. Just like she said, like some of these skills somehow sounds like something that are not basic, something that are not really important, like the bead making, the textiles.
At that stage, bead making is like fashion designing. So when you scale up from there, isn't it?
Yes, because some of these children, if you go to, during our own days, there's this specific day where we do some of these crafts, but it's no longer there. It's no longer there. So I think if they start with that little from the scratch and they advance, so let's hope that she's in the education system.
Well, I really think those skills are not really all the children need to be, or exposing them to the fact that you can make something from nothing is a beautiful step. So from putting the bits together, they could begin piecing computer parts together, piecing different things together.
I've seen children gather empty cartons and make good architectural designs from them.
Yeah, but I also think about coding also. So somebody was telling me something about the fact that the private schools have introduced coding in their curricula, and there are some other schools that don't even know what it is. I mean, you see kids, telling you about coding, what they did about coding, and then other kids will tell you, what are you talking about? I'm talking about kids of 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
And you are on a path to something extraordinary when you are going through the path of coding, versus somebody who is just piecing beads and doing putting clothes together. But we'll come back to that, to expand on that. But right after we take this particular report on Children's Day, we're back after this. To stay with us.
Every year on the 27th of May, Nigeria joins the rest of the world in celebrating Children's Day, a day dedicated to honoring the younger members of our society and recognizing their rights, potential, and importance in the development of the nation. This annual observance offers not only a moment of celebration, but also an opportunity for reflection on how far we have come as a nation in protecting and empowering our children, and on the responsibilities we must bear in ensuring a better future for them. Nigeria is a country with one of the youngest populations in the world. Each of these children holds within them immense potential, dreams, and aspirations that, if nurtured, can transform Nigeria socially, economically, and politically. Despite often being exposed to difficult circumstances such as poverty, conflict, and inadequate access to quality services, many still strive to achieve greatness. They are artists, scholars, entrepreneurs in the making, and community leaders in their own right. However, it is not enough to recognize their potential. We must also create the environment that allows them to thrive. In the traditional Nigerian family structure, children are regarded as blessings and are essential to the continuation of family lineage, values, and cultural heritage. Children often take on practical roles in family life. While this promotes responsibility, it can also lead to the premature assumption of adult responsibilities, especially where poverty is present. And so there must be a balance, where children are taught responsibility without being overburdened, and where their personal development and well-being are prioritized. Although children may not directly participate in governance or economic management, their role in national development is foundational and far-reaching. The future of any country lies in the quality of its young generation. The values, skills, and knowledge we instill in children today determine the strength and direction of our country tomorrow. Education plays a vital role in preparing children for nation building. Beyond formal education, moral and civic training instills patriotism, respect for law and order, and an understanding of the rights and responsibilities of citizenship. Despite their importance, many Nigerian children face significant challenges that threaten their well-being and limit their potential. Many of these children come from marginalized communities, conflict-affected zones, or families that cannot afford education. In both urban and rural settings, children are engaged in harmful labor, including street hawking, domestic servitude, and industrial work. While some work to support their families, such engagement often exposes them to exploitation, abuse, and a lifetime of poverty. Child mortality rates remain high in Nigeria. Malnutrition, preventable diseases, and lack of access to clean water and vaccinations continue to plague many communities. Abuse, whether physical, emotional, or sexual, remains a major issue. Many children also suffer from neglect, whether in urban slums or even affluent homes, due to parental absence, substance abuse, or lack of social services. Creating a society where children are safe, healthy, educated, and empowered should be a national priority. We must take decisive steps to ensure every Nigerian child, regardless of location or background, has access to free quality education. There is a need for stronger implementation of child rights laws, community-based protection mechanisms, sensitization campaigns, and the training of law enforcement and social workers are necessary to combat child abuse, trafficking, and exploitation. More investment is needed in maternal and child healthcare services, particularly in rural and underserved areas. We need to prioritize vaccination, nutrition programs, access to clean water, and affordable healthcare. Poverty remains the root cause of many child-related problems. Initiatives that provide families with social safety nets, skills training, and access to credit can reduce the need for child labor and improve family stability. Children and young people should be given a platform to express their opinions on issues affecting them. Policies should be shaped with their voices in mind. Platforms like student councils and children's rights forums should be promoted. A societal shift is needed to value children, not just as future contributors, but as citizens with current rights. This involves promoting love, play, creativity, and psychological support, and ensuring children are not only taught discipline, but also dignity. As Nigeria celebrates Children's Day, the nation is reminded that children are not just passive beneficiaries of society, they are active participants and future leaders. Their role in the family, in the culture, and in the future of the nation cannot be overstated. To fully harness their potential, we must commit as a nation to addressing the challenges they face today. They deserve a country where their rights are respected, their dreams are nurtured, and their voices are heard. By investing in their education, health, protection, and overall development, Nigeria is not only fulfilling a moral obligation, it is securing a prosperous, peaceful, and sustainable future.
Welcome back. That was a special report from my colleague giving you an insight into Children's Day and exactly what it entails, especially for underserved kids. And I just wonder what you both think about the underserved. I mean, every day we talk about poverty, every day we talk about how maligning it is to live in Nigeria, to even eat food these days. And then you wonder if someone find it difficult to find food, you can imagine what happens with education. You know, poverty has a very huge role to play when it comes to, you know, the well-being of a child wherever they are. I mean, there's no way you can look at it, whether you're looking at it from an aspect of being a religious person or from a government person or policy person. I mean, you know that it is very, very difficult these days. That's why some in countries you see that primary schools are actually free of charge. But of course, in some parts it's not. Most of the time now, because of how the life of our country is, it's become difficult to raise those kids in the way and manner that you really want to raise them. For you both, if you were to create policies that would assist the next generation of kids or adults, what kinds of policies would you be putting through, just in case you have the opportunity to create policies that would assist in the growth of these kids?
If that was something to be done, I think very critical to their growth and development is the quality of people that teach them, the quality of teachers that they are exposed to. You know, I really believe that there should be a policy that will insist on the professional development of these teachers, because for all you care, a lot of teachers still teach children that are going to be leaders of tomorrow the way they were taught yesterday. And they would only do that because that's all they were taught. That's all they know. And the world has so moved. You know, exposing these teachers to professional development courses, allowing them travel to see the world. You know, when you send them on conferences, they go and see what is happening in other places. When they come back, they are able to give that same thing to the children. So, you know, insisting on professional development for the teachers. Then something else I think would be really a good policy to institute is compulsory education. When you go to the markets now, you see children, when children are in school, you see young children littered all over the places looking for who to help carry their bags. These children should be in school. You know, if it's compulsory in primary and secondary school, at that time, the formation has taken place. So when the child is done from secondary school and has learned some skills, has learned the basics of reading and writing, and decides not to continue, that's okay. But I think we owe children a duty to ensure that they get basic education. They didn't ask to be born. They didn't ask to come to Nigeria. I'm sure if they had a choice, they wouldn't be in Nigeria. So we owe them that basic thing, because, you know, without education, they are limited on many fronts. There's so much they can't do. When you see a carpenter that is educated, it's different from an uneducated carpenter. When you see a welder that is educated, it's different from an uneducated welder. So, you know, no matter what they decide to do after that, we owe these children the responsibility of making sure that they get the basic education, which is not just in primary school, but also in secondary school. Then I also think we should bring back our technical schools, our vocational schools. Everybody doesn't have to be in the conventional school, you know, learning the maths. Let them go to those vocational schools. You know, in Igbo, they will say, oh, there are people now. Do I believe that? No. Every child can learn. Every child truly can learn. So it now depends on what you are exposing them to. Some of these children that show no interest in academics, when you put them into these vocational schools, you realize, oh, they are good with their hands. So we're sitting on a lot of potential that we are wasting. So if we bring the vocational schools back, all these technical schools, and have these children go into them, we would have a more productive society.
Fantastic. How about you?
Okay, I think she mentioned most of the major things, which is like the basic education. I think another thing we need to look into is the child protection, because there's a whole lot of child abuse going on in our society now. Like you see kids who are meant to be in school, they are being sent to the market, sent to hawk, sent to do domestic servitude and all of that. So I think there should be a child rights protection. I know there's a child rights protection, but it's one thing to make a policy, it's another thing to enforce that policy. Because when we go out into the street, we see a whole lot of children on daily basis. So the people who are in charge of this policy or who have been directed to carry out this policy should please sit up and go to work, because you can't pull somebody's child maybe from a rural area and bring the child to an urban area in the name that, okay, I want this child to be a domestic or a help, or maybe some of them are children who are orphans, and you bring them in the guise that you want to help them, and you turn them into slaves. That's child abuse. I think we should enforce that. I know there's a policy already, but there should be an enforcement, because a whole lot of children are already traumatized at their very little age. So I think we should also look into that, and not just get a shelter for these children, but also punishing those who are perpetrators of this act, because most of them do it because they do it and they get away with it. Nothing is being done to them. So there should be a child protection. And again, I think every child has where their strength lies. Like she mentioned, some are good in mathematics, some are good in skills. So let's bring into our education curriculum skills that will help every child thrive. Because most of the times you see that even parents, even those who are privileged, that is not even poverty, they want to force their children to become what they don't have interest in. Children should be at liberty to choose what their interest is and what their passion is, what drives them, and I think they will thrive in that area. For now, I think that would be fine.
Interesting point. You mentioned quality of teachers. Do you also consider quality of parents? Because these days, parents are mostly derailed from their duty. It's more of a digital parent than there is a hands-on parent. How important is it?
I don't think it's a Nigerian problem. It's a general problem. I think it's what we get to deal with the globalization. So you see a parent that hasn't been able to feed their children dancing on TikTok. It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. You know why I think it's a huge problem? If the quality of parents was right, the deficiencies from the government can be padded.
Of course.
It can be corrected. If the government schools are not exposing your children to these skills, you see it and then you know, okay, I need to go get my children these skills. But a lot of parents are disconnected. So they will tell you, I hear people saying, I don't want my children to go to boarding school because I want to be with my children. And I wonder how many of us are really with our children. A lot of times we are physically present, but we are absent. So what do you do in the time? Formal education is one thing. Before formal education came, there was education. The one that had to do with the family, and many times what propagated that type of education was through conversations, through modeling. So the parents are going to do something, the children come along with them. As they're doing it, they're teaching them, okay, this is what we do, this is why we do it, this is how we do it. The parents were actively engaging with their children. So they finish doing the day work, they come back in the evening, they sit down and tell them stories about their family. What those things are doing is they're forming those children's values. So then you would hear a child say, oh, in my family, we don't do this. We don't do this. How does that child know that we don't do this? Because they were taught. But now, some people would argue that, the economic situation is so different now that the husband has to work, the mother has to work. But it's not about the quality of time, the quantity of time we spend, but the quality of time. I agree we need to work to make ends meet. But when you come back and you have 20 minutes with your child, what are you doing with them? What do you do with them? So now there's this epidemic of people trying to use their children to create content. And to make money. So you now see people sexualizing children, making the children become who they are not. So you already see the children becoming very conscious of themselves. So I really think parents are as guilty as the government, because it's our responsibility. The family unit is first of all responsible before you get to school. So if before you send a child to school, 80% of the job has to be done at home. You need to present a child that is ready to learn, able to learn. So a child that is not able to take instructions at home will not take it in school. But these days you see a lot of parents telling you, oh, this child, I can't deal with this child. Just let school resume, and then there's a 1 week break. And parents can't stay with their children at home. But we have the first responsibility. We are the primary caregivers. So it's not really about, so people would say, oh, are you saying I should resign my work to come and stay with my children? No. Make the time you have with them count. The little times, okay, you're bringing them back from school, engage them. You know, when you have active conversations with them, you're passing your values on to them without having to say, sit down, this is the value, that is the value. Someone complained to me the other day and said, oh, my daughter, I can't get my daughter to read. I can't get her to sit down and read. And I asked her a very simple question. I said, do you read? She said, no, I don't like to read. And then you're complaining that your child doesn't like to read. You know, so we need to be able to sit down and tell ourselves the truth. Because if the family totally loses it, then the society has lost it. So we have a primary responsibility. Oh, in your children's school, they don't teach them coding. Find somewhere to learn coding. You can get someone in China to teach your child coding. We have a responsibility, but we need to be aware of that responsibility and aware of where the gaps are and be willing to fill them as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. Fantastic thought. I mean, everything we've spoken about is about giving to the kids, giving to the kids all the time. Do parents think that the kids also have responsibility?
Of course, the kids have responsibility, but it's the responsibility depends on what the parents have given to the child, because you don't expect to get what you've not given out. If a child is being properly brought up, taught what responsibilities are, definitely the child has something to bring back to the parents. Just like she said, what are we modeling? What are we teaching these children? Because I've worked with children and I've worked with teenagers. We have this set of parents now that are absent parents, even while present. They're emotionally disconnected from their children. They don't know what is happening in the life of their children. I was talking with a parent yesterday and she was like, she doesn't understand what is going on with her daughter. I said, from the time you started receiving these complaints till now, is not when it started. It's just that you did not pay attention. If you have paid attention, you would have noticed that something is going wrong with this child. So if children are taught values, are taught morals, are taught, okay, this is how things work here, this is what doesn't work, definitely that child is going to bring back things like, bring back values back to you. Because I tell parents, the major insult, or the worst of insults you can get, is somebody asking your child, who raised you? Yes, that's the highest of the insult. If somebody should tell your child, were you properly raised? Who raised you? As like we will normally say it. I say, okay, if you raise a child properly, there's no way that child is going to bring shame or bring reproach to your home. So a child who is being taught, like early days when maybe your parents are farmers or maybe they are traders, during the holidays you take the children to the shop, you take them to the farm, they know, okay, this is maybe our family business. That child will uphold that business. That child will work in life, even if they have their own passion or something else they want to pursue, but they know that, okay, this is what we do, this is what my parents, they try to preserve that dignity, they try to preserve that that lineage, they try to preserve the family name. So if children are properly taught, they are something they return back to the parents. We see children, we see recently a child won, I think it was a Grammy Award on animation with AI and all of that. It's because they gave her a safe space and environment to try. If you haven't gotten that opportunity to try, she wouldn't have brought that honor back to not just her parents now, not just her school, but Nigeria as a country. So, but somebody was behind it. Something prompted that. There was a push from somewhere, there was a support from somewhere. So I think if you give the children the necessary support, there's something they have to do.
Right. I mean, just to continue with that trajectory of thought, you have to be a parent, a present parent, to do the right things, to teach the right values, yes, for you to get things back. Is it possible that you have parents who have the right values, have taught the right values, and still have kids who are wayward?
Yeah, exactly. There is.
How possible?
Yeah.
How much does that really affect? Because every time we blame parents for some of these issues that happen, we've seen pastors, bishops who have kids who are wayward.
Of course, that's where peer pressure and peer influence comes in. That's where the society also comes in. As a parent, you can do, let's say, your best, and the child chooses a path. It happens.
What if your best is not really good enough?
it actually happens, but I think.
But is it usually when your best is not good enough that things?
You know what I think? Sometimes, okay, let's look at Eli in the Bible, for example. Eli was a priest. His sons became drunkards. They were doing all sorts of stuff. Would Eli really sit down and tell himself, because I was a priest, I did all I could do? He could have been a good priest, but a bad father.
Of course.
So sometimes, when we see these children manifest and become wayward, there probably is something the parents didn't know to do. That's why I would always advocate parents should continuously learn. Find out what is going on. Find out, okay, if you're having challenges with communication, learn how to communicate with your child. These days, a lot of things have been simplified for us. Go and learn. You know, it's not okay to say, oh, because I'm a preacher, my child should turn out well. It wouldn't work out that way. And then when the child doesn't turn out well, we'll now say, oh, I did all I had to do, but you didn't turn out well. Sometimes we truly didn't do all that we had to do. So some people raise good children, you know, you need to study your books, you need to get good grades, and we forget to teach sex education. And somebody teaches them the wrong thing.
That's where the society,
they get the wrong exposure,
the influence,
you know,
all of that comes
and then
in.
the person will now say, oh, I did all I should have done. You know?
The thing is, as a parent, you know, some parents could actually do what we consider all they think they could have done, but there's this thing I also tell parents. You see, most of the times the problem is that we want to clone our children.
Absolutely.
Parents
I
want to
agree.
clone the
I
children.
agree.
To act in a certain ways.
Yes. To become that prototype. This is who I want you to become.
Because I am a priest,
You have to,
be a priest.
Absolutely.
Because I am a doctor.
You have to
but
be a doctor.
you should also know that they have their own lives.
Absolutely.
So what you do is you keep your own self and walk in their own desire. That's where you bridge the gap.
And our job is to guide.
Yes, because most of the times the problem between parents and children sometimes is this child is seeking independence and the parents are trying to hold on, and there's a stretch.
Yeah.
The child is seeking independence, the parents is saying no. You can give the child independence and sit back and guide.
Absolutely.
Because in the case of Eli and his sons, I think God did not punish Eli because of the sins of his sons. God actually punished him because he sat back and couldn't do anything.
Ladies, we just have to leave it there because of time, really. I'd love this conversation more, but I think on another day we should have this conversation, maybe extend for an hour at least, because I really love it. All right, thank you so much, Lady Jennifer Ekwueme, entrepreneur and school manager. Many thanks. Truly appreciate you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Ifeoma Nwatu, teen handler, a public servant,
Thank you.
friend of the family. Many thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Save Nature TV. News in your pocket.